This video is about reproduction. And reproduction is simply the production of new living things. And we call those new living things offspring. As you might remember, being able to reproduce is one of the 8 characteristics of living things. And it can happen in 2 major ways. It can happen asexually, a meaning without sex, or it can happen sexually. This is a quick rundown of asexual reproduction, and it's just that the offspring that are produced are genetically identical to the parent. So this is basically like cloning, which is kind of neat actually. So the way you make a clone or an identical copy of a parent first is by replicating the DNA and then growing the organism and then dividing that organism in 2. So a good example of this is binary fission in prokaryotes. Again, so here is our initial little bacteria. It replicated its DNA and then went through cell division and divided into 2 completely separate organisms, but they were genetically identical to the parent. On the other hand, there's sexual reproduction. And sexual reproduction happens and the offspring that are produced are genetically unique from the parents and from any other living thing that has existed before it. So this is that, like, you're an original snowflake idea. We can say that thanks to sexual reproduction. And this happens by joining haploid gametes from 2 parents together to fertilize and form a genetically unique individual. So gametes are just a fancy word for sex cells, like egg and sperm. And so when you join those 2 gametes together, you're going to get a unique individual. That's why our little baby is like, I'm special. Now we're going to focus specifically during this video on sexual reproduction. And in sexual reproduction, 2 haploid gametes, again, are going to come together and form a genetically unique individual. Alright, so that's why organisms can have the same parents, but the offspring all look different. Just like you and your brothers and sisters may look similar and may look similar to your parents and grandparents, but none of you are exactly the same. So just to break this definition down, haploid means these are cells that have half as many chromosomes as every other cell in your body. So in humans, our cells, like our skin cells and our muscle cells, have 46 chromosomes in every cell. And so our haploid gametes, human sperm and egg, will have half that many. So we have 23 chromosomes in eggs and in sperm. This is really great, this whole sexual reproduction thing, because all these genetically unique individuals make for more variation within a population. And the more variation there is in a population, or different kinds of individuals, the more likely that species is to survive if some detrimental event comes through. So the more genetic variation, the better, and we can thank sexual reproduction for helping us with that. Okay, and now we're going to look at who sexually reproduces. So several different kinds of organisms reproduce sexually. Some protists do, some fungi, and then all of your plants and animals. Now, plants specifically, some of their reproductive structures are cones and flowers. So yes, cones are for reproducing. There are actually male and female cones on a pine tree. And flowers that you give for Valentine's Day, that has all of the eggs and sperm. You know, they don't call it the birds and the bees for nothing, because it has to do with reproduction. In animals, the major reproductive structures are the testes. These are found in males, and these make sperm. And the ovaries, which are structures that make eggs. Interestingly enough, some animals actually have both testes and ovaries, and that's called being hermaphroditic. Now, we're looking at our sperm and our eggs. So we have a haploid sperm, a sperm with half as many chromosomes as a normal body cell. So we designate the word haploid, just the letter N. You're going to be seeing this later, so it's important that we get familiar with this notation. So a haploid sperm, which we notate as N, meets a haploid egg, also N, and N plus N equals 2N. So when the sperm fertilizes the egg, we have a genetically unique individual that is diploid, right? Di means two. So it has two sets of chromosomes. It's 2N, one set from the dad and one set from the mom. And the process of the sperm and the egg coming together right here is called fertilization. And we're going to look at two different ways that fertilization can occur in animals. So fertilization can happen externally, meaning outside of the body, or internally, meaning inside of the body. So here is the lowdown on external fertilization. The organisms that reproduce and whose eggs are fertilized externally are mainly your aquatic species. So these are going to be your fish and your amphibians if we're looking just at vertebrates. Now, the process here is there's going to be some kind of courtship ritual. So yeah, even fish like do swimmy dances, and of course, you know, frogs sing those frog songs and they croak and ribbit to get the ladies excited. Right, so there's some sort of courtship ritual, and then once the female has sort of A-okayed the male, she will release many eggs, and then, so this is into the water, then the male will release his sperm over top of those eggs into the water, and this may be like some little nest, but it's still in the water. So they have to release many eggs and many sperm because you're in this aquatic environment. There are all kinds of predators, and so the likelihood of your offspring survival is really low. So they have to make a whole lot of gametes in hopes that they get together and survive. So again, fertilization is going to happen in water. There's our little fish in love, and then they're going to do external fertilization. Whereas your terrestrial organisms, or organisms who live on land, okay, they are going to do internal fertilization. Internal fertilization is super simple, right? This is going to be our reptiles, our birds, and our mammals. And they too are going to engage in some sort of courtship ritual. Maybe it's a song, maybe it's a dance, maybe it's just like I have the biggest antlers, or I'm a ram and I'm going to slam into this other guy and aren't I impressive? Alright, so there's all kinds of fun things that actually attract organisms to each other. So I'm going to start with that. And then internal fertilization, the sex organs of the male and the female are actually going to join together, and the male is going to pass sperm directly from his body into the body of the female. And this is great because your fertilization is going to occur inside the woman. So your fertilized egg is protected by the female's body until either it grows large enough and then is laid as an egg, or say you're a mammal, until the offspring grows to the point where it can be born completely. So it's pretty great. You have a higher success rate of the sperm meeting the egg in the first place. You have a higher success rate of your offspring actually developing to the point of birth. So sexual reproduction by internal fertilization actually has a higher success rate than external. But the key is that it works for the terrestrial organisms, and external, though in general it has a lower success rate, it works just fine for fish and amphibians. We'll look more into what happens after fertilization in another video.